The rain was coming down hard. It hit the roof of my car like 100 tiny fists. I couldn't see anything through the windshield. The wipers were going as fast as they could, but they couldn't keep up with the storm. I was lost. The road had turned into a muddy river. Then, through the sheets of rain, I saw it. An old house stood on a hill, dark and silent against the angry sky. It looked forgotten, with broken windows like empty eyes. I had to get out of the storm. I parked the car and ran toward the house. The wind pushed me hard, trying to knock me down. I felt like a leaf being blown around. The front door was huge and made of dark wood. It was heavy. I pushed it with all my might. It creaked open with a groan that sounded like a person in pain. Inside it was cold and smelled of dust and dampness. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like ghostly decorations. I shut the door behind me and the sound of the storm became a distant rumble. I was safe from the rain, but a different kind of chill crept over my skin. The house was so big and empty. Every little sound made me jump. I stood in the grand foyer, dripping water onto the dusty floor. My own breathing sounded too loud in the silence. I decided to explore, hoping to find a dry place to wait out the storm. I walked through a long hallway. Portraits of people with stern faces watched me from the walls. Their eyes seemed to follow me as I passed. I felt like an intruder, someone who didn't belong. The furniture was all covered in white sheets, making the rooms look like they were filled with sleeping ghosts. I found a large living room with a fireplace. It was cold, of course, but it felt safer than the hallway. I sat on the edge of a sheet-covered sofa, hugging my knees to my chest and trying to stop shivering. The storm raged on outside. I could hear the wind howling around the corners of the old house. It sounded like a lonely animal crying in the night. I wondered who had lived here. Why did they leave? The house felt sad, as if it missed the people who once called it home. I closed my eyes, trying to imagine the house filled with light and laughter instead of shadows and silence, but the cold was seeping into my bones. I pulled my wet jacket tighter around me. I just wanted the storm to end. I just wanted to leave this place. But the night was still young, and the house had other plans. As the hours passed, the cold in the manor grew deeper. It was a biting cold that made my teeth chatter. I rubbed my arms, trying to create some friction, some warmth, but it was useless. The chill seemed to come from the very walls of the house, from the stone floors beneath my feet. I thought about trying to start a fire in the fireplace, but I had no matches and the wood looked damp and old. I felt my fingers and toes growing numb. The darkness outside was complete now. The only light came from the occasional flash of lightning, which made strange dancing shadows on the walls. I felt so alone, so small in this massive, freezing house. Then something strange happened. I felt a sudden warmth on the back of my neck. It was like someone was standing right behind me, their breath soft against my skin. I froze. My heart started beating fast like a drum. I was supposed to be alone. I had checked the rooms. There was no one else here. I slowly turned my head, expecting to see a person, but there was nothing. Just the empty, dark room. The warmth was gone as quickly as it had come, leaving my skin feeling even colder than before. I told myself it was just my imagination, a trick of my tired mind. But then it happened again. This time the warmth spread down my spine, a gentle heat that chased away the cold for a moment. It felt like a hand was resting on my shoulder, a comforting touch. But it wasn't comforting, it was terrifying. I jumped to my feet, my breath catching in my throat. "Who's there?" I whispered, my voice shaking. The only answer was the sound of the wind outside. I backed away from the sofa, my eyes darting around the room, trying to see into the deepest shadows. I felt like I was being watched by someone I couldn't see. A new sensation filled the air, a heavy, sweet smell, like old perfume. It was a scent that didn't belong in this dusty, forgotten place. It smelled of roses and something else, something I couldn't name. It was a woman's perfume, strong and overwhelming. It wasn't mine. My own scent was of rain and wet clothes. This smell was everywhere now, clinging to the air, making it hard to breathe. The warmth, the touch, the scent, it all meant one thing. I was not alone. Something was here with me in the dark, and it was getting closer. My fear pushed me out of the living room. I needed to move, to do something other than stand there and wait. I found a hallway that led to what looked like a lady's bedroom. It was smaller than the other rooms, with faded floral wallpaper and a large, ornate mirror hanging over a dressing table. The mirror was covered in a thick layer of dust. I walked toward it, my own reflection a blurry ghost in the dim light. I reached out and wiped a small section of the glass with my sleeve. I wanted to see my own face, to remind myself that I was real. As I stared at my reflection, the air in the room grew heavy and moist. The surface of the mirror began to fog up, not from my breath but from something else. It was as if someone invisible was breathing on the glass. I watched, my heart pounding against my ribs, as the fog spread across the entire mirror, hiding my reflection completely. My hand was still raised, frozen in midair. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. I was trapped by what was happening, my curiosity fighting against my terror. The sweet smell of perfume was stronger in here, almost suffocating. Then a line started to form in the fog. It was a letter. An invisible finger was writing a message on the glass. I watched, mesmerized and horrified, as more letters appeared, one by one. The writing was elegant, like a woman's handwriting. T-H-E-Y. No, that wasn't right. It was Y-O-U. The words slowly spelled themselves out in the center of the mirror. You are not alone. The message was clear. It was a confirmation of my deepest fear. It wasn't my imagination. There was a presence here, and it wanted me to know it. I stumbled backward away from the mirror, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream. My mind was racing. Who wrote that? How? Was it a ghost? Was this house haunted? The question spun in my head, making me dizzy. I wanted to run, to flee back into the storm, but my legs wouldn't obey. I was paralyzed by fear. The words on the mirror seemed to glow in the darkness, a stark and terrifying warning. I was a guest in this house, an uninvited one, and my host had finally decided to introduce itself. The silence that followed was worse than any noise. I stood there staring at the message on the mirror until the fog slowly faded, taking the words with it. The room was just a room again, but it didn't feel the same. The air was thick with tension, with an unspoken presence. I felt its eyes on me, watching from every dark corner. I backed out of the bedroom, never turning my back on the mirror. I felt like a mouse being played with by a cat. A slow, creeping dread filled me. This wasn't just a haunting, it felt personal. It felt like this presence was focused entirely on me. Then, a voice whispered my name. Clara. It was a soft, feminine voice, like silk. It seemed to come from right beside my ear. I spun around, but there was no one there. The voice was familiar, which made it even more frightening. It sounded like someone I knew, or someone I should know. It held a strange mix of warmth and menace. It was a beautiful voice, but it sent a shiver of pure ice down my spine. "Who are you?" I cried out, my voice cracking. "What do you want?" The only reply was a soft, low chuckle that echoed through the hallway. The voice was seductive, pulling me deeper into the mystery and the fear. "Clara," it whispered again, this time from the other end of the hall. "Don't be afraid." But I was afraid. I was more afraid than I had ever been in my life. This was not human. This was something else, something old and powerful. I felt a strange pull, a desire to know who was speaking to me, mixed with the overwhelming urge to escape. It was a confusing and terrifying feeling. The voice knew my name. How did it know my name? I'd never been here before. The presence felt closer than ever, a tangible weight in the air around me. I could feel its curiosity, its interest in me. It wasn't just haunting the house, it was haunting me. The warmth, the perfume, the message, the voice, they were all for me. This wasn't a random encounter, I had been chosen for some reason. As the first light of dawn began to break through the clouds outside, I knew the storm was ending, but my ordeal was not. I had a terrible feeling that the spirit in this house didn't want me to leave. It wanted more than just my company for a night. It wanted something from me, and I was afraid I wouldn't be able to refuse.